Hi everyone and welcome back to Techie Anshi. In this video on my channel, we will design a Tableau dashboard from scratch using a survey data. So let's begin without any further ado. So let's see what we will do in this video. We will first go ahead and download a survey data from a GPT and use that to develop a dashboard. So I'm on chat GPT now and I will prompt it to give me a survey data with 1000 records that I can use to create a dashboard in CSV format. The GPT is powerful enough to give me a good data set that I can use, so I'll just go ahead and download it. Once I have this data downloaded, next all that I'm going to do is create a Tableau dashboard from scratch. So let's begin the process of creation of this dashboard now. So firstly, we will go ahead and connect to the data that we just downloaded, which is nothing but a CSV, that's a text file. So you'll select text file here and just go ahead and select the data sheet. This way you're going to first build this section of our dashboard and we'll create one sheet at a time, the top pane. So to begin with, we'll start with the KPI section. I'm pulling in the response ID into text and converting it to a count distinct to get the distinct number of the respondents to my survey. So I'm calling this as total respondents KPI. And in the text, we'll just make some edits to make this KPI look better. So I'm going to say total respondents and then the number, and let's just format it because formatting is really important. So firstly, we'll just edit the font and maybe use just Tableau bold for the KPI and just a bigger font compared to the text so that it stands out loud. You can give the font the KPI different colors as you would wish to. So if you want, you can use a blue, green, or like whatever you like. And I'm just going to use a green for now to see how it looks. And just center align this to make this fit properly in my KPI card. I'll just fit it to an entire view. So now I have my total respondents KPI. However, I don't like the font size. I think it's a little smaller, so I'm just going to edit this a little bit to just make it a little bit bigger, and I think this should fit properly on the dashboard, right? So with that, I think let's also just change the color to blue because I think that's a little bit more sober than green. And so one of the KPI sheet is ready, so we'll duplicate the sheet and now create the next KPI, which is our average satisfaction score. Now, as the name suggests, it's an average score of the satisfaction column. And I'll just go ahead and edit this text here as well to say average satisfaction score. Now, all that I need to do is to pull the satisfaction score column into my text, and then because this is average, we need to change it to average. Now you can see 3 decimal points. I'll just format it, the number format, and reduce it to 1. I think this looks better, and we'll go ahead and duplicate this now to create an average likelihood to recommend score. That's another data column in the data set, which is basically a likelihood score, right? So again, in a similar way, we will just put the likelihood to recommend column and just take an average of this particular field. Now, as you can see, again, there are decimals. I'm just going to reduce the decimals to 1. And finally, I'm also going to just edit the text on the top of the sheet to say average likelihood score. Right, now I'm at the responses by age group sheet. Now this sheet is where I want to create a donut, right? Now firstly, since I'm talking about different age groups, I can't pull the age directly because it's not a dimension. So I'm going to create a bin. I have a separate video on bins if you really want to follow. And this is basically a bin where I'm creating dimension of size 10. So what it is going to do is divide my data into various smaller groups that I can use in order to create a dimension. Now I want to see how many respondents are there from each of the age groups, right? So as you can see, I'm able to pull in the count distinct of response ID here, and that is helping me to know how many different users from each age group are there. We'll just change this to pi and then pull the age into the colors. That way I'm able to build a pie chart out of this particular metric and fit it to an entire view. Now I just want to do something more with this, so for that I'm going to use or create a donut chart. And I just like how donuts look because they like give you a better look and feel, and then you can experiment a little bit more with it. So meanwhile I'll just give some aliases to these fields in here. Actually, let's just call this age 10 to 20 so that it's more clear what the number signifies. And that way on the dashboard I can just quickly call out these are the different age groups, right? Age group 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and the other number is basically your number of respondents, right? So now I can know that the first one is the bin and the second one is the number of respondents. You can add a hash as well in front of it if you need to, but I think it's fine. Again, the fonts are really important, so you should just make sure that your fonts stand out and they are big enough for somebody to read. And as consistency purpose, I'm going to just make the KPI number as bold, so you can see here how this chart looks now. Now the next part over here would be to edit the colors, for which I am going to go to the color shelf and just pick a color from here. I have this color palette already and I'm just going to use this bright color palette. Now I convert this to a donut, right? So in the rows I'm writing min of 0, converting this to a dual axis, right clicking and synchronizing the axis. And then I'm just going to increase the size so that I can see it properly over here. For the next, what we will do is just format this a little bit to remove all the row dividers, any grid lines and any zero lines, just to make sure that it looks neat. So I'm just going to go into different areas of the format lines and just remove these default lines from here. And then we'll just go ahead and hide the show header. Now the next thing is, while converting a donut, that you need to do is go on the second mark shelf and remove everything out of it, which is the one on the top. So you can see this gray area. If you reduce the size of it, you can see the behind area as well, which is the pie. Right now I'm going to use a shape as marks and use a preloaded shape that I already have from here to fill up the center area of my donut chart over here. So as you can see, I'm just going to use an image and set this and just say okay. This will add the image on top of the pie which is behind, and it just makes it looks like a donut, although it's not actually a donut, but just a workaround to see donuts. Now I just want to show tooltips, however I just disabled it, so I'll have to enable it again. So for that I will, yeah, I just want to show the different age groups and the percentages. So I'm just pulling the count distinct of response ID and then converting it to a percentage of total. However, since the tooltip is disabled here, I can't see it, right? So what I need to do is first enable it from the alls. So I need to go there, enable the tooltip to show everything, and then just add the areas that I need. So I just want to show the bins and I just want to show the percentage. The numbers are already there in the view, so it wouldn't make any difference if I have them or not, right? So I'm just saying this is the age bin and then this is the percentage on hover over, which adds a little bit more value to this particular chart over here. So with that, response by age group pie chart is ready. Now the next thing is we'll create another sheet. As I'd shown you in the initial that we are going to create one more sheet. This is likelihood by the product detail. So we're going to use the likelihood to recommend score and then just show it by different products. Now usually somebody would use a bar chart to do this, or maybe just a table, but I'm just going a little ahead and using infographics here. So I have likelihood to recommend score. I'm going to take a median of this time, and it just makes more sense to show median because I feel that gives you the number, the most likely response that people have chosen, and then it's by different products, so you can see this table, right? Now what I'm going to do here next is something different. So I'm just going to pull the median on the text, and then I'm just going to use actually shapes instead of any different chart. So what I'll do is I will go into the marks and just change this to shape. Once I change it to shape, you can see that I can pull in the median as well as the product into the label as well as I need. and then fit this to the bottom so it looks better. And then I'll just edit this particular text over here so that I can see the product, just a little bit font formatting, and then the median score, which is a little bit bolder. So just following the same schema of things that I've been following in the dashboard, making the number, the KPI a little bit bold and the product like this. And when I pull the product used onto the shape, I can use a different shape for each of the product. It is always ideal to select the right shape based on the product that you have so that it makes more sense for somebody who looks at the dashboard. With that, I'll just go ahead and hide the headers and then just remove any of these lines over here as well. So some of the grid lines, any zero lines if there are any, row dividers if any, so that it just makes it look cleaner. With that, this sheet is almost also ready, but I just feel it's not very evident what is the value shown in this graph, so I'm just going to add a simple median in front of it so that it's clear that this is median. And I'll just edit it to Tableau light, right? So again, median, but again I just feel we can also think of this to be called as maybe median score, so that it becomes easy for someone to understand that this is a likelihood to recommend score and it's a median value of the same. So with that, I think this one is also pretty much ready over here. So let's hop on now into our dashboard and then create a dashboard from scratch with these sheets first. Okay, so I'm going to use the size as a generic desktop size so that it can fit to most desktops. This is the height and width of the generic desktop. Now on this particular one, I first want to give it a little bit of a background to my dashboard. So I'll use a gray background, maybe a little darker one, and then just give a simple border around this whole thing, right? So I can go ahead and just maybe bring in a vertical container here because my dashboard is laid out vertically, and I'll remove any padding and give a simple border, right? I'm just giving it a black border, and there's some padding as you can see over here, but I think it's in the outer container. So I'll just go ahead, double click on the container to select the outer container and remove this padding completely. So now my box is basically my canvas in which I can place my objects. I'll first begin with giving the dashboard title. So I pulled the text object and I'm saying survey dashboard here. Once that's done, I can just format it, center align. I'll use a black Tableau bold, and we can increase the font size. Here I'm using 22 and you can use per your wish, right? So I have now the survey dashboard as the title, and I now need to align all of my sheets. Before that, I always recommend using a horizontal container and bringing a blank container or a sheet below it so that you can put in the next set of sheets after you're done, right? So as you can see, I'm just pulling in a horizontal container here, and I'm just going to reduce the height, and this is the container, the top, and this is the bottom area where I will put future sheets. So now in the top container, which is my horizontal container, I want to put in all of the sheets that I created. Let's begin by first placing the rightmost sheet into this view. Okay, so my rightmost sheet is the likelihood to recommend my products, so I'll pull that in. Next, I'll pull in the donut that we created before it, and then because I know my KPIs, there are 3 KPIs and I just want to put one below the other, I will need a vertical container over here. So I'm pulling in a vertical container and resizing it so that I can pull in all of my KPIs now. So total respondents, average satisfaction, and average likelihood score. All the scores are in here. I'll just go ahead and hide the titles, and I'll hide the titles for everything, right? So let's hide it for all the sheets over here. And the donuts a little bit bigger, so I think we can reduce the size of the donut so that it fits better. I'll just align this a little bit and then maybe go to the donut sheet to align it or reduce the size here. So you need to go into each marks and then reduce the size. You can't do it from the all, otherwise it will not resize it the way you want it. Okay, so now this is done. If I head to the dashboard, I can see this looks much better. Now, since I have all of my sheets here, I also need to somehow, yeah, let's also just quickly reduce the size here. I think it's a little bit bigger, so maybe a 7 and this be a 9 and this can be 12 overall, so that this looks, yeah, the labels are not pretty huge. And this I think also should be reduced a little bit, especially the median score. I think that also can be a smaller font, so the product can be 8, the value can be 12, and the median score can be 7. With that, I'll click on OK. So let's head back. Now I think this looks better. However, you see there's so much, it's very at the bottom, right? So I'm just giving it a little bit more padding so that my whole sheet can come a little up, that the labels can be near the icons. And then you will have to give a background, and this has to be an inner padding and not an outer padding. As you saw, I first gave the outer padding and realized that it's not gonna work, right? So yeah, this is how it should be ideally. Any padding in the bottom can just bring the labels closer to the icons. That's a small hack that you can also follow, right? So now it's time to bring in the titles. So what I'm going to do here is that one by one I'm just going to put in the titles and align this. I'll use Tableau bold again, and I'll just color it white because I want to have a black background. And yeah, I think 12 is 11 is decent enough. And then I'll format this text object, center align, and then give it a direction change so that it is, you know, vertically aligned rather than horizontally. And then I'll give a background. Now as you can see, I have my old container, I'm moving it here, and then I'll also just format the width and set it to 32. I think that's an ideal width for a KPI card like this, for a KPI title like this. And I don't think I need any padding, so I'll just remove that. But I think I need a little bit on the left side so that it's not just going inside the dashboard border, right? So I again need to edit the width and set it to 36. This should be perfect. With that, let's just do the same steps for each of the different areas of the dashboard. So these are my top KPIs, then these are all of my KPIs, and now let's me also pull another object for text. For the pie chart, we will call this as responses by age groups. And again, let's just quickly format this. So Tableau bold, and then 10, 12, and then white, and that should be good. Format text object, center align, and direction is vertical. Give it a background of black and remove the padding. Just give it a little left padding of 4, and then let's just go ahead and edit the width of this as well. So I can edit the width and set it to 35. Yeah. Now finally, for the last title here on the top pane, I'll pull in the text object before the product sheet, put in the likelihood to recommend by product, and again format this Tableau bold, 12, white, center line, format text object, center, center, and vertical. Somehow it's not fitting so well, we'll do something about it. Again, removing all the padding, setting the left padding to 4, and giving it a background of black. Yeah, need to give it a little bit space, so I'm just dragging this down. I think this should be perfect, and I'll again edit the height and set it to 35. With that, I think most of my sheets on the top pane are like completely ready, and this is how my top pane would look like when you view it. Let me just go ahead and save a version before I lose my work. And now it's time to begin looking at the bottom half of the dashboard, right? So let's build the bottom half. Now this is a very interactive area of the dashboard, and it will require you to like really focus what I'm doing. So here I am doing satisfaction by various dimensions, and satisfaction score is what we are going to use. So first, but I will use it to build for a country, and then we will update. Okay, so I'm pulling country into columns and the average satisfaction score into the rows. Now first I'll pull the satisfaction. Okay, as you can see, I just pulled, I have not done any aggregation, but I will just hit control and drag it and then use a average. Okay, so as you can see, I have two marks, one in rows which is satisfaction, the other is average. And now I'm going to just dual axis synchronize, and you can see, right, these bubbles, the orange one for the other one, and this is the bar. Just convert everything into bar for now. And as you can see, this is getting like ready. For the first one, it's fine for it to be bars, and the second one actually is what I need to like work on. So I'll remove the measures from the colors and bring in the satisfaction score onto colors, and on the second one I will convert this to a circle. So as you can see, the circle is the score, the average score, and those 1 to 5 are basically those bars. Increasing the size of the circle and fitting this to an entire view. Now I will hide the header on the right side, that's not needed, and just reduce the bar size. As you can see, again I'm going to increase the pie size or the circle size here so that it's little bit bigger, and give it a border so it's easier to demarcate which is the circle and what is the bar. Okay, now I'll pull in the average score onto the colors, and I will edit this color and use the colors that we have been using consistently on the dashboard, something around the red and green I feel, or maybe just a diverging color like an orange blue. I think that will fit in well. I want to use all the 5 colors and use the full color range, so I'm setting it up that way. And similarly for the satisfaction score, I am just going to give the same color palette, and I'm going to use the stepped colors and use the full color range. Now as you can see, the colors are not right for the average score. Somewhere I'm seeing grays and orange, so I think something's wrong here. So I edit the colors. Let's see if the full color range, no, that is not the issue here. So if I edit it again and go to advanced, set the start and end from 1 to 5, and then see, oh, everything just turns gray. Right, somehow I want to see some colors but not everything is gray. So let's just do one more thing. We will set 1 to 5 for that one and 3 as the center. And first let's bring in the label to know what the value is so that we can know if we are doing the colors properly. And the label can be again center aligned inside the bubble so that I can know the average score. So around 3.2 is what I would like to see blue, and anything that's close to 3 should be like blue, but however anything that's 2.7ish and all that can be gray, right? So I think the color needs to edit accordingly. We will see. Okay, so I'm editing the axis to start from 0 to go to 5, and I'm just going to remove this title from here because that's not needed, and uncheck the automatic so that it's not pulled in again. And I will hide this particular field label. You can hide the headers if you want to, and I just feel we don't need all of those lines, right? So you can just remove the row dividers, your zero lines, and your row grid lines. That way you can see all the lines gone. Now on the second marks, as I said, I'm have to do something about the colors. So if I start it from 1 to 5 and don't give it a center, I think this looks much better, but I think we need to have a center of 2.5 so that it is able to understand better. Yeah, I think this is perfect. Starting from 1 to 5 and a center of 2.5 gives it the right color that I need. I can just format this and just give it a little bit of bolder value so that I can know what I'm looking at. And yeah, I think this should be good overall. As I said, we want to make this interactive, right? So right now you're seeing by each of the countries the various respondents for each of the scores, and then what's the average score. Now I'm going to create a parameter that's going to help us switch between the different dimensions. I'm going to call this parameter as choose dimension, and with the data type of string, it's going to have a list value where I'm going to give all the dimensions that someone can choose. So we have gender, we have country, and then we also have the products. Okay, so I'm going to call it product used. Now with that, I'll click OK. I need to create a calculation on top of this parameter for it to work, right? So the parameter itself can do nothing unless you create a particular calculation. So let's go ahead and create a calculation here, and the same thing I'm going to call it choose dimension calculation, and I'm going to say if the chosen dimension choose dimension is equal to gender, then we need to use the gender field. Else if the choose dimension is your else if is basically now you choose your dimension, which is country, and you will set this to use the country field from your data source now, so that it picks up the country source. Just pull in the right field here, make sure you're not messing that up, and in the else condition you will go ahead and choose the product used, and that way we will end this whole calculation and click OK. Now this is the one that we need to use in column instead of your dimension, which was country before. And now when you switch between the parameters, can you see how this particular chart is able to switch between the various things that you are selecting, right? So this is a great way for somebody to achieve interactivity in a small space, where you can give your users the ability to choose between different dimensions while they are looking at the same chart, the same space, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and set this to country by default for now, and give the ability to the users to select the right things. The last sheet that I'm going to build is basically comments, and this will just show in all the comments from our data source, so that the person can look into the comments and know exactly what feedback that people also have, right, when they do the interaction on the dashboard. Simply I have pulled the comment in the rows and in the text and hidden the header so that it looks simple, neat and clean. Now let's go back to our dashboard. I forgot to name it. Let's just name it survey dashboard. And then I know we had a placeholder area for the text, but now we need to use a container. So I'm using a horizontal container, and I'm just going to remove that blank area that I had before. Drag the container little down so that I can have the area as I need. And in this particular container is where I will place the two sheets that I just created. So our likelihood, the satisfaction score sheet, and then our comments. Now I just need legends from here and the parameters, so I'll just keep that and remove the other one because I don't think everything, like a lot of things are needed here. So just keep it simple, delete that rightmost container that comes by default, and set the parameter to a compact list, right? So this will give the user the ability to select from a particular list, and you can bring this interactively on your dashboard. I'll just place this here for now for some time, and actually I don't even really need to show the legend if I have the headers shown on the charts properly. But first let's align this properly. So as you can see, I have the comments. I will go ahead and hide the header for these comments over here, and just give the whole outer container some top padding so that it just shifts a little down and doesn't like completely gets merged into the top section over there, right? I'll hide the header for the satisfaction by dimension. And yeah, as I said, I don't think we will really need the score because there's no space for me to keep this legend. So I'm thinking to maybe just introduce a simple header in this sheet. That way I can know what each signifies. So I'll just enable show header, and that way it's easier to know what the score is and how everything's going. Yeah, and yeah, as you can see, this is done. I can give it some padding on top again so that I can fit in the parameter inside this frame and give a white background. As we know that you need to always go ahead and give the inner padding and not the outer padding, and that's why I'm demoing you here that if you're doing the outer padding, then you can't have the background color and it will be gray. So yeah, I think this will give the ability to switch between the different parameters here. So you can switch using this particular parameter I have in the area. And now all that we need is these text fields, right, to know what each of these charts signify. So I'll add a average satisfaction, and this is going to be by different dimensions, right? So I'm going to insert the parameter we created. It will give the chart also, the text also, a dynamic nature, and the same way how we had the other area set, I'm just setting this up as well similarly and clicking OK. Formatting, center aligning, and vertical, and then just give a background of black and remove the padding out from here. For all the size I'm going to put 0, and for the left one we'll give 4. Right, now we can again edit the width or adjust however you'd like to do. You can do it accordingly. Just make sure it all aligns properly so that you don't see any gaps there, right? So this is done. And similarly for the feedback, again I need a simple title there, so I'll just go to the text, pull the text, and just call this feedback and give the font Tableau bold, size 10, and then white and center align, and format text, center align, and then vertical direction, and then give a background of black. Remove the padding completely. Yeah, actually I should first remove the padding and then edit the width. So let's remove the padding, and on the left side we want to have 4, so we'll give that, and then now I will edit the width. So set it to 35 consistently like the whole dashboard. With this, I believe the dashboard is pretty much ready. It's really interactive to look at this small section, right? Being able to filter by various dimension and also the title updating. One another tip to bring the dashboard to be interactive is to enable cross filtering. You can go ahead and click on the funnels next to these charts so that they are all now sliceable and diceable. So now if I want to know what people from the age group of 25 to 30 responded, what was their score, what product are they likely to recommend, I can do that really easily with the click of a button, right? And then if you see here, I can go ahead and say in Germany, who are the people who have rated me low, what are their what are their feedbacks, different scores and all of that, right? So it's easy for me to slice and dice the dashboard with something like this, where you have interactivity as well built into your dashboard. And even with feedbacks, right, you can enable a cross filtering. So if I want to know exactly this feedback came from which area, which location, who was the person, not exactly who, but what are their comments on the product, so I can exactly know which product they purchase and the different things with respect to it. So I just feel interactivity is a key in any dashboard that you build. And if you can think through of how a particular user is going to use this, then it can bring in more value or add in more value to any dashboard that you create, right? So whenever you build dashboards, just make sure you include some elements of interaction and give the users the ability to derive insights from it so that they can also feel empowered. I hope you liked this particular designing session with me on Tableau, where we designed a simple survey dashboard. Though it's simple, but it's really, really powerful. So I hope you really enjoyed doing this with me. If you're watching this video till now, then please do drop a comment and let me know how this video was and what are your feedbacks around. I would love to hear back from you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I want to do so much for this community, and only by having a larger community will I be able to sustain for longer. So I'll request you to please subscribe to my channel and give this a thumbs up. With that, I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.